he said it. Senator Dick Durbin, who was in the room, confirms it. Senator Lindsey Graham, who was also in the meeting, says he stood up to the president after those comments. Senator Tim Scott says that Graham told him the reported comments are basically accurate. We all know the president meant what he said. And sources telling CNN the president called friends to do a victory lap. So it's painfully ironic, or for some, just plain painful, that today the president sought to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. saying this.
That is what Reverend King preached all of his life: love. Love for each other, for neighbors, and for our fellow Americans. Dr. King's faith and his love for humanity led him and so many other heroes to courageously stand up for civil rights of African Americans. Today we celebrate Dr. King for standing up for the self-evident truth Americans hold so dear, that no matter what the color of our skin or the place of our birth, we are all created equal by God.
So that's what he said today in front of the cameras. But remember, behind the cameras, this is what the president just said yesterday, and I quote, "Why are we having all these people from shithole countries come here?" Kind of makes your skin crawl to hear him talk about Dr. Martin Luther King's values. And more than that, it whitewashes Dr. King. His real message, the one he fought and died for, is just as powerful today as it was 50 years ago. And it's not about some warm and fuzzy kumbaya America. Listen to this. This is his 1967 book, Where Do We Go From Here? And I quote, "Loose and easy language about equality, resonant resolutions about brotherhood fall pleasantly on the ear. But for the Negro, there is a credibility gap he cannot overlook. He remembers that with each modest advance, the white population promptly raises the argument that the Negro has come far enough. Each step forward, a sense and ever-present tendency to backlash." Those words ring true today. My colleague Van Jones took a lot of heat calling the election of President Trump a white lash. But Donald Trump has proved over and over with his words and actions that his presidency is a step backwards for race relations in America, a step backwards from the real ideals of Dr. King, racial and economic justice. Quote, "The fact is that capitalism was built on the exploitation and suffering of black slaves and continues to thrive on the exploitation of the poor, both black and white, both here and abroad." Contrast that with President Trump asking why we can't have more immigrants from countries like Norway, forgetting that it was people from what he calls shithole countries who built this country, who built the White House. Nothing that Donald Trump says can change that. I want to bring in now CNN political commentator David Swerdlick and CNN political analyst April Ryan. Good evening to both of you. Thanks for joining us. April, you know, you tried to get the president on the record today during that Martin Luther King ceremony. Let's take a look at it.
Mr. President, will you give an apology for the statement yesterday?
Mr. President, did you refer to African nations? Did you word shithole?
Mr. President, are you a racist?
Mr. President, did anything happen?
Mr. President, will you respond to these serious questions about your statement, sir?
No. The answer is no.
We're talking to the president, not you, sir. Mr. President, are you a racist?
Wow. The president ignored your question. So April, talk to me about this ceremony. It was a day after he said all of these things, and those were pretty prescient questions that needed to be answered today.
Yeah, the ceremony, it was all the pomp and circumstance for this proclamation. Vast majority African-American Republican leaders who were in the room, from clergy to politics to Heritage Foundation. The new head of the Heritage Foundation, Kay Cole James, was there. You had so many different people there. But that was really the pink elephant in the room, what was said yesterday. But many of those there were in total support of the president. And he made a statement, and then Dr. Ben Carson came and read words and spoke of unity and Dr. King. And then after that, Dr. King's nephew spoke. And then the president moved from the podium, and then he sat down and signed the proclamation designating the King site, historic site, as the King Historic National Park, bringing in some of the buildings, the Masonic Temple in that area that was the first building of the SCLC where it was founded. So, and then after that, right after that, the president started getting up to shake hands, and the reporters started asking questions, and I was one of them. And while I was asking questions, one of the supporters of the president decided to basically try to shut me down while I was asking a question, and he persisted, being very loyal to the president, I guess you would say, a black gentleman, well, African American person.
You don't want to name him?
And Daryl Scott. Daryl Scott.
Yeah.
And you can see it's on camera and everything.
Yeah.
And,
what was he telling? What was he saying to you? Why was he trying to
ask.
shut you down? What did he say?
Because he's loyal to this president, and he did not want me asking. He said to me that it was rude later on when I was trying to leave the White House to go to lunch. He was taunting me in the driveway and saying that it was rude. And I said, no, this is my First Amendment right. And, you know, this pastor was not happy with the fact that he says that I smeared Dr. King's memory by asking this question on this day.
Well, Dr. King
But
didn't say
when you have,
oh, no. Right? It has nothing to do with Dr. King.
and not
the
he
president
did
said
not,
that.
not only that, not only, right. And with all of that looming from the day before, and all the other things, the litany of issues that, you know, from Pocahontas to this, to that, to the other thing, it just kept building, to the Muslim ban, to hearing about Nigerians, to the Haitians, and, you know, recently, and then this, the S houses or S holes, whatever he said, the question was there, it was looming. And people were saying racist, and I went and asked the NAACP yesterday, what is the definition of racist? They said when racial prejudice and power meet. And it begs the question because all of this is happening, and that is the ultimate seat of power. So, you know, and not only that, from what I'm told, Daryl Scott, because I was walking into the room, he was jumping on the reporters talking about your vultures before I walked, because I could hear him as I was walking into the room, and when I came in, it kind of stopped. But he was determined to chastise someone. So he was.
You can see it's ignorance, and it's people who don't know where they are, and
he is ignorant. He's very ignorant.
It's very ignorant, and people don't. You're in the White House. The press is there.
And he's a guest, and I'm doing my job.
Thank you very much. This is your house.
Yeah.
David, go on. What did you want to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say a couple things, Don. First of all, my hat's off to April. Those questions were heard loud and clear. There was no hesitation. You could hear it above all that chatter. You tried to get to the heart of the matter, April, and the president just turned his back. I do think it has something to do with Dr. King, contra the gentleman, you said it was Daryl, it was Pastor Daryl Scott, because if anything, Dr. King, right, was about getting to the heart of things. April, you were trying to get to the heart of the matter of what we've been talking about for the last 2 days. I would just add on the note of Dr. King, since it is King weekend, that if King had been there with regard to this whole issue of immigration and where people come from, he might have said to the president and everybody there to check your Old Testament. Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 19 says, love the foreigner because we were once foreigners in the land of Egypt. And all that message has been forgotten by the president and Republicans on this issue. They've gotten so far away from that.
But it's not been forgotten by the president. He doesn't go to church.
Okay, well,
it's not forgotten by the president.
Or not known, either forgotten or not known. But other Republicans have lost the thread of that from this immigration discussion. I think that, look, the president had to go through with that ceremony today, Don, I guess. But in
Did he
contrast,
have to go through with it?
Okay, well, I'm sure he thought he had to go through with it. And look, we, as you and April were saying, we saw people that we all know there in that shot, right? Our colleague Paris Denard, my friend Katrina Pearson, people were there, you know, that we've been on air with. But, you know, what was that all about when you look at the bigger picture of what was reported by my Washington Post colleague yesterday, the S-hole comments, the whole discussion about the Dreamers, and this idea that the president was so willing. It's weird, Don. Not weird. Weird is too cute of a word at this point in time. It's really striking and unfortunate how the president, if you looked at that clip you played, he needs notes and teleprompters when he's trying to say something decent and constructive, but when he's saying something acid or tart or rude or offensive or racist, it rolls off the tongue. And I think that's really where we are in this discussion right
I just can't imagine looking back at that picture, if I'm in it, in history.
Well, no, look,
It's going to be, I don't know.
people are there because they want to honor Dr. King, but the small event, in contrast to the big discussion we're having, I think, is an odd mismatch.
Thank you both. I appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you. When we come back, has President ruined America's standing in the world with a racist trash talk? Can the U.S. continue to be a moral authority under President Trump? We'll talk about that.